have a very, very exciting guest today. Someone that has loads and loads of experience in B2B commerce and is sharing lots of wisdom on LinkedIn oftentimes. And hopefully, and I'm sure he will, be sharing some of his wisdom with our listeners today as well. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here, Carlos. You are an associate director, digital commerce at Boston Scientific. You have more than 20 years experience in B2B commerce. One of the questions we always ask our guests, I'm pretty sure you didn't grow up dreaming of a career in B2B commerce. Probably when you and I grew up, B2B commerce wasn't even a thing, right? So could you tell us a little bit about how did you get where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career in retail electronics back in the day when you had commissioned salespeople in these electronic stores and meeting with customers and trying to upsell them and get those warranties signed up. So I started there. Eventually, I moved to Japan. I ended up getting into web development. I was running a very popular at that time Macintosh developer site. So I learned a lot about web design and development there. I always had a passion for design myself. Eventually, I shifted from doing like graphic design at work to doing more web design. After 14 years, came back to America trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I saw a position in e-commerce. Oh, what's that? That sounds interesting. So I took it. It was at a B2C slash B2B catalog distributor. So traditionally sending out these massive catalogs to their customers and
Print, I suppose.
Print, yeah, print. And, it's like you print those, and then as soon as you're done printing them, they're pretty much behind, like pricing and product
Exactly.
spec, right? So the company was trying to shift more of its sales over to online channel. We ended up growing it to about 30%, but I had the great blessing of having a tremendous mentor at that time. His name is Wayne Mack, and he really taught me a lot about e-commerce, which you know the language he spoke, I think, made sense to me because he was talking about customer service, he was talking about sales, he was talking about overcoming objections, cross sales, upsells,
Hmm.
merchandising, POP, store layout. And this all can be tied back into my retail background. So it made a whole lot of sense. It's just, now you're doing it online. And just to kind of go off on an offshoot, I think because there's less retail operations out there and less young people going into retail, that it's sad to think that they're not going to have that kind of background in the basics when they get into e-commerce today. So you're joking before about you know how we've been in this business for such a long time. So kind of ties into that. But yeah, overall, I've been in B2B all these years, sometimes dipping my foot into B2C, but mostly B2B. I love B2B. It's very challenging because each customer is having very unique problems that you don't experience in B2C. I think B2C often you're just focused a lot on the customer experience and campaigns,
Yeah.
promo codes and things like that. But B2B, yeah, you're dealing with a lot of puzzles every day, and that to me is interesting. So that's how I fell into e-commerce, and I'm glad I did because I love what I do. It's every day, as you know, it's different.
Yeah.
Some days you're thinking about analytics. Some days you're thinking about customer service, voice of the customer, all the way to creative things like working with your designers on mock-ups and so forth. So it's a wide field that I can't recommend enough for young folks to get into.
Absolutely, yeah. And well, if we look at it from, if we look on the bright side, it's true. Young people do not may not get as much exposure to that retail experience as you and me too had when we were very young. But at the
Yeah,
same time, kids are now building their own websites, which we weren't doing at 8 years old or 10 years old, right? So there's an upside to it as well.
yeah, there's definitely an upside, and I think the interesting thing is, back in the day when we started, most of the e-commerce started within the IT department. There were no platforms that you could
Yeah,
go out there and really buy. You'd have to like build these platforms. But nowadays you have these SaaS-based platforms like you know that are running on the cloud, and takes you minutes to set up a web store.
exactly.
So yeah, times have changed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, what's so striking to me, and I'm interested in your perspective, is that when I speak to business leaders or sales leaders that are or are not yet providing digital services to their customers, is that they're
Mhm.
so focused on the transaction only, right? Whereas
Yes.
if you look at that from a retail situation, yes, transaction is important too, but right, all the other stuff that you just mentioned, your store layout,
Mm.
what it looks like, I don't know, the music, that's also getting lots of attention. And in digital commerce or in e-commerce, in that particular channel, maybe even more so, people seem to be so focused on that transaction. Why do you think that
Yes.
is?
Yeah. My experience is that typically over in the sales org, or upper, I should say the C-suite, a lot of the folks that are there came up through the sales org, and so they tend to be often focused on sales, and specifically incremental sales. And so often the way I was measured at companies was, Carlos, this is what we're doing through traditional sales. Um, Now get us more additional sales that we're
Yeah.
not
Hmm.
capturing today. So incremental sales. And certainly at every company I've been at, we've proved the business case that yes, we can drive incremental sales, but that is just such a, as you say, just one part of moving the customer online. There's so much more to gain when we're moving the customer online. And I think, yeah, I mentioned the whole angle of making um, the internal folks more efficient, and that could be anywhere from, let's say, your service your service center, right? The customer service reps, making them more efficient. But also, sometimes our customers are calling to speak to a product manager. Oh, I need some specifications on a particular product. But if we have a great product detail page, a PDP,
Hmm.
again, that customer can self-service to get those specifications. And then, we think about our salespeople. Um, we we've taken at many companies a great look at, okay, how many salespeople do we have, right? And then based on that, then we ask ourselves, um, how much are we paying them? uh, And then the next question we ask is, in a given week, how much time are they spending on non-sales activities? So that means the customer calls them and says, "Hey, where's my order?" Right? So that's time spent. And then they're calling customer service. Hey, where's my customer's order? Or they're calling to the logistics folks, or they're calling to the purchasing department, so forth. So there's time there. So we quantify how much time they're spending, and we're able to derive like, okay, this is how much time they're spending, and this is how much uh, costs that they are occurring, and that comes uh, into like a very large number at the end of the day of like, if we were to save them, let's say 20% of their time, um, to focus on sales activities, just looking at the efficiencies themselves, it's a huge, huge number. It's a huge number. I mean, it's significant. Um, and we often look at the efficiencies. We could also look at, well, if they're not doing all that minutia work and they're spending, they have more time now to sell.
Mm.
I'm hoping that they're going to use their time to sell and not be like the Mad Men guys who sit around and drink whiskey back in the day. But yeah, hopefully they're going to have more time to sell, and so that in itself is going to lead to more sales. So I think companies need to look at e-commerce as like not just a transaction engine, but so much more. And if you think about today, I think the stat is like over 70% of purchases start with research online, right? So if your customers are starting their journey online, you have to have a fantastic website that has uh, all the product information, all the specs, um, very high resolution, fantastic pictures. That's the expectation.